Welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast, a podcast where we focus on real issues and have real talk, and as always, provide a biblical perspective. We hope that you will be blessed as you listen.
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast. This is the Amazing Truth Minute.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
The Amazing Truth Minute today comes from the book of Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 15. And it reads, "For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin." You see, empathy is a characteristic that helps relationships thrive. When we sense that someone has compassion for our suffering, it builds trust and intimacy. On the other hand, if we suspect someone has no desire to show empathy, there's a good chance we will withdraw. The writer of Hebrews pointed out that Jesus, our high priest, can empathize with us in every situation because he was tempted in every way during his time on earth. Yet he did not sin. Regardless of the reason for our struggles, Jesus understands our situation. There is no reason to avoid him or isolate ourselves for fear of being shunned. The scriptures invite us to approach Jesus in prayer and share exactly how we are feeling. We don't have to hold back or filter what we say because God's people have permission to be transparent with him in prayer. Jesus both understands our weaknesses and serves as our source of strength to overcome them. And that is the Amazing Truth Minute.
The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Amazing truth is back,
We
Kenan.
are back. We are back.
Man, I feel like it's been ages. I missed you, man.
I missed you too, Ezra. I missed the sound of that jingle. It's good to be back.
Feels good to be back. Feels good, man. But you know who I missed most?
What did you miss?
The audience.
Yeah.
I missed the audience, man.
And thank you for keeping us on
my
toes.
phone. My phone has been quiet. The email has been quiet. But I've gotten some here, there. Where are you guys? What's going on? What's happening? But we had to take a break after a heavy season one, and it was heavy, man. Kenan, what was the last season all about?
Last season we talked about a myriad of issues. We started with amazing women. Yeah, our wives graced the podcast.
Yep.
That was season 2. We talked about endometriosis. We talked about stillbirth, just women issues and what they go through. And then we built up on that. We started talking about chemical dependency, mental health, and that was I ran over how many episodes? About 6.
I don't know how many episodes there were, but we had some real candid, amazing, strong people who just blessed us, man. They blessed us.
So
I think it was a deserved break after that.
We needed that.
We needed that one. People want to say,
tired of seeing your face.
That's a nice way of saying you missed me, man. But guys, we are back. We are back in the studio, better, much energized. Looking forward to this new season. We've titled this season Purpose-Driven Life, right?
Yes.
One of the things when you go back to last season is, especially when you talked about mental health and we talked about chemical dependency, one of the things that kept on coming up was identity crisis.
Yep.
Like, especially in that formative stages, people are finding themselves, trying to find, am I African? Am I American? Am I religious? Am I this? And in the midst of that, they developed unhealthy coping mechanisms. And later on in the stages of their lives, you see how that impacts and affects them, right?
Yep.
So I think this season we're coming back to say, now let's find that purpose in advance, right?
Yeah.
If you're 2 years, you're 5 years, there's a reason why you exist. You're not here by accident. So by you finding your purpose, then identity doesn't become a crisis. And you're able to say, no, that's not my calling. That's not my purpose. That's not why I exist. That's not why I should be doing that. And so the journey through discovering and finding yourself. So purpose-driven life. We have some exciting guests, man.
Yes.
Some exciting guests lined up, right? Kenan, there's one guest actually who I'm looking forward to. I mean, we have amazing guests, but there's one who's gonna talk about debt and clearing your debt.
It's the last time we talked about our physical health. That hit us. Now you're bringing debt.
As you all know, in case you're catching up for the first time, Kenan has a struggle going for physical checkup. But this year we are holding him down to make sure that he goes for that.
Ezra, please. Find your purpose in life and say you have the struggle as well.
We do have a struggle as men. And we're calling out men there. Do not wait until it's too late. And I think that's anchored on, again, one of our podcasts where our brother Gaddafi shared how, he had held back, and before he knew it, he had stage 4 cancer. It was too late because he never went for that. So, man, our guest is a man
again, like we say, it's not about us.
It's never about us. It's never about us.
No.
Sometimes we get carried away, especially after not seeing you for a while. Welcome back. Welcome, listeners. Welcome, our friends, our followers, our loved ones. We are back, but today in studio, we have a special guest.
Yeah.
We have a special guest, and usually we let the guests introduce themselves. But I'm gonna say one thing about the guest. This guy has seen it all. I know him personally. I have lived with him. I have seen his journey, and so I'm excited for him to be here. So I don't want to butcher how, because it's been a while.
Can I say something?
Please go ahead.
You said you lived with him.
Yeah.
I apologize in advance. Our guest. You have to endure that.
You have no idea.
Go ahead.
You have no idea.
All right. Without further
podcast.
ado, I think at this point, I just let the guest introduce himself, tell us his name, where he's coming from, and just a couple of things. Tell us your name, where you're born, where you're based right now, and what you're looking forward in our conversation today. Don't say all the things that Kenan said about us living together.
That's a whole podcast.
That's another whole podcast. All right, go take it.
Yeah. Man, I'm still recovering from living with us, right? All these years.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but on a serious note, I'm excited to be here with you guys on this wonderful podcast, Amazing Truth. And my name is Valmy, and Valmy Karemera. I'm originally from Rwanda. Moved here when I was about 16, 17. Moved to the US, then Canada, and then back in the US. Typical immigrant story. And right now I live in Houston with my wife. We have 2 amazing children. And I'm excited to join you guys in this studio. And I'm looking forward to our conversation. I have no idea what you ask, so we're just going to freestyle this see where it goes.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it, man. Welcome, Valmy. Kenan.
Yeah.
Just let me say that it's not fair for how you introduced me to Valmy and how we lived together. But I'll tell you, he has an amazing family. He has 2 wonderful girls. And I think I helped him a lot too in those struggles of identity and finding himself when we were living together. But excited to have you, Valmy, here in studio. Today, as you had listeners, we're talking about purpose-driven life. I was reading a quote by Miles Monroe, and this quote just hit me, Kenan. He said that, and let me read this quote for those of us. Just a second here, Kenan. You see, I've forgotten how we usually do this. See, this is why we should not take a long break. He says this, Miles Monroe says that the greatest tragedy in life is not death, but a life without a purpose.
Yeah. Wow.
There's so many people who are alive today who they walk, they breathe, they eat, they're feeling the space, the spot, but there is no purpose in life. Actually, the Proverbs, in the book of Proverbs, Solomon says, the wisest man who ever lived, he says, where there is no vision, people perish, right? So today we're just here to talk about, do you have a vision? Do you have a goal in life? And Valmy, we're going to find if he has a vision or goal, but we're going to share through his story. So Valmy, Tell us a little bit about yourself. You said you were born in Rwanda, moved here as a teenager to the US, Canada, back and forth. Just walk us through a little bit about that journey. What brings you to the US? How does that happen until you get here? So as we seek to find who you are and your purpose in life.
Well, I was born in this amazing country, Rwanda. Unfortunately, Rwanda is known as, it's known because of the genocide, 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. But other than that, Rwanda is an amazing country. It's called a country of 1,000 hills. For those who have been there. We have an amazing culture, amazing people. And I'm so glad that after these years, 27 years, you can see the journey, the progress that the country has made. And the recovery, the healing that is going on, and so. But prior to that, I was born in that context. My mother worked for an oil company back then in the 80s, and my father had gone through med school and was one of the chief physician of a department at the leading hospital back then, the hospital in Kigali, the capital city, and so. The war started in 1990, and then 1994 there was a genocide, and so through the genocide I lost my family members, my uncles, my immediate family, my parents, my mom, and I think it was April 11 that my mother passed away. And I just learned how that happened because I wasn't with her where she was. She had been saving some of our neighbors. So she went and warned some of our neighbors and warned them about, hey, they're coming to kill you guys. And so my mother left our house, left our building, went to our neighbors, knocked on their gates, and she warned them. So they moved to the next to us. One of our neighbors was a UN residential compound. So she warned several of our neighbors. And so they went to the UN compound. So they hid there for a number of days. And through these days, she's going around knocking on several of our neighbors, and they all come to this compound. And on her, what I would call their last trip, when she stepped out of the UN compound, she met with the killers. We called them Interahamwe at the time. She meets with them, and that was her last. And so some of the neighbors, some of who were our neighbors at the time, and so subsequently I spoke to them what happened, and one of them is actually right now one of the daughters who we grew up with. She lives in Dallas, and her parents were telling me the story of what took place at the time. So that's the context I was born in, and then eventually we had to leave Rwanda. We immigrated to the US and then stayed in Indianapolis.
So Valmy, before you go there,
Sure.
I think there's a lot of gems, and I call them gems in a positive way, because I
Sure.
think they're lessons that have shaped you through that. Your story is, if I heard you correctly, you're setting the tone saying that you were born in a well-to-do family, as in your mom was working, she was doing well, your father was a physician. Where were you? You say you were not there. You learned about this whole story.
So my parents, yes, they were well to do. I think we didn't go to bed hungry and that kind of stuff. So what happened? My parents had managed to take me in and out of the country to study from different schools in the neighboring countries. Yes. And I remember me and my mother, we had gone through Tanzania, Kenya, and then eventually to Uganda. And in January 1994. I was with my mom. We were in Kampala, we were in Uganda. And then she left me there in a boarding school, came back to Rwanda. And then we spoke like April 1st, and the war started on April 7th. And so we spoke on the phone, hey, Mom, when are you coming back? She say, look, there's some few things I need to clear out, get enough funds, then I'll come at the end of the week. So I call her on the phone. I call her at home. I say, hey, Mom. But when I called, the phones didn't go through. So at that time, the war had started. Wow. But I had been there till all the way up to 93. So I witnessed one of my aunts aunt, just to go on a tangent here, one of my aunt had gone to, how do you go to, like a taxi park?
Yeah.
So she had called this taxi park. She gets in the taxi park and there are these killers waiting for her, almost. And they tried to strangle her, and unfortunately, eventually she died because I think she died of a stroke as a result of that strangling. Maybe a year after that, just before the genocide. So the whole thing about the genocide, I mean, it wasn't just something that happened right there and then. It's something that had been building up. So that's the context of where I was, where my parents are, my aunt, my family members. And here's even what's interesting is my grandma, who was about maybe in her 60s at the time, my aunt, who lived in Indianapolis, had managed to snatch my grandma out of the country just right before the genocide started. And I'm sure she would not have survived that genocide. So you see the hand of God, the amazing truth, the amazing facts, the amazing God that we really worship, working and weaving himself through our lives.
So Valmy, you at this point you are a young boy.
Yes.
So I mean, as a young boy, you probably haven't formed your mind or made decisions. But what is going through your mind, if you can recall? Like, what was going through your mind now? You've been to Kenya, Uganda, you've seen not near so perfect life, but then you come to Rwanda and there's a genocide, people are dying. What is going through your mind as a boy then?
I think the first question I ask myself is about death. Why do people die? And it wasn't even about killing people, but why do people die? I mean, so I started wrestling with the question of death, because as a young boy, you're saying, okay, maybe I can walk through the streets and I'll meet my parents again. Or maybe they disappeared somewhere and then they're going to come back. But then slowly, you come to face with the reality that there is such a thing as death. And recently I was I just finished a book called Tuesdays with Molly, a fascinating story of a student who was with a teacher, and then anyway, the teacher was about to die, and the student reconnects with his teacher. The student reconnects with his teacher, and now the teacher is telling the student how to live life. The student is still young in his 30s. The teacher is about, I think, 70s. He's dying of cancer, and so he's telling him, how should you live? So he tells the student, and I thought it was profound. He said, unless we learn how to face death, we can never learn how to live.
Wow.
And I thought that was profound.
That's profound.
So at a young age, I started wrestling with the question of death. Death. What does it mean to die? I mean, is this all there is to life? I mean, you're born in an amazing family, and then in one day, all these things are snatched away. You're almost starting from scratch. Let's say you go to school. No matter what your accomplishments are, but then there is a question of death.
Man, Kenan, a lot of things going through my mind right now as I'm listening to these. Valmy, as a teenager, January 1st, around January, you go to school. That's the last time you see your mom.
Yeah, that's the last time we talked.
That's the last time you talk to your mom.
Yeah.
3 months, you're thinking you're going to come back home, life will continue. But April 1st, you make that call, it's not going through.
Right.
And that becomes a new life. Yeah. You almost wake up to a new world. And now your thoughts, you start wrestling. And as a young person, I want you to pause here for a second and talk to a young person who's in the teenagehood life, who's probably going through a crisis. Just take yourself back into those days.
Right.
What would you advise the younger self of you? And we'll build on the story, but I don't want to miss that moment that you're still young and anchorage and dealing with these issues, because that's the reality of life right now.
Right. I think to a young person, for me, what I faced then was the question of, it was just survival. Survival, basic needs, food, shelter, and any parental care or guidance. because there were many kids who were being. One time I almost joined the military. I went in the camp, and then I happened to have an uncle who was a captain in the military, and he said, "No, military is not the track for you." So you're now looking for a guidance in life. So someone may be struggling, a young person may be struggling, whether it's addiction, whether it's a purpose in life, whatever you're struggling with. But I just want to say it's not the end of life. There just have to be some sort of a perseverance. Just hang on, because it gets better.
So I think what you're saying is you have to, at some point in your struggle, pause and say, this is not me.
Yeah.
Or however difficult it is, you have to define and say, this is not me. This
Exactly.
is death, poverty, mental health, whatever it is, it does not, it shouldn't define you.
Exactly. It shouldn't define you. I mean, because at that point, I was the only child, and this was the whole. My parents, my family was the whole world to me, and suddenly, the world turns upside down for me, and I think there is. It develops, if you hang on, you develop this tough skin, so whether you're going through a mental, whatever issue you may be going through right now, whether it's a divorce or whatever it is, but holding on and understanding that, look, if I hold on tonight, the sun will be up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, and I think, and at that time, because my family never even attended church, in fact, we were Catholic at the time.
So let me ask this question. Let's bring it back, Valmy. How does life proceed for you now that you're calling, nobody is answering the call, you are in school closes? How do you end up in Indiana? And your grandma, and how do you reconnect?
So this is how you come to understand that in life, it is important to always do good, to be kind. No matter where it went, and I learned this, even though my father never went to church, but he was very kind. He always helped a lot of people. And some people he treated for free, some people he paid for their education and so forth. So right there in Uganda, we meet this gentleman who happens to know my dad. He pays my entire tuition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he pays my entire tuition. Then we return back to Rwanda. So my aunt was married to this gentleman. He's now one of he's now an accomplished pharmaceutical scientist. And even though he was of a different tribe in Rwanda, my dad had wrote a medical clearance for him to go study overseas. And so this gentleman looks at, hey, your dad was very kind to me. Your dad, even though I was of a different tribe, yes, I had married into your family, but he saw beyond my exterior physical features. He saw beyond what I would call today, beyond my skin color. And then he wrote me this medical clearance that enabled me to come here and progress all the way to a PhD in math. So he said, when I heard what happened, I had to immediately also reach out, extend the same kindness that your dad extended to me. So from there on, he just taught me, whoever you meet, just be kind. You may not have much, but whatever you have, if you share, you never know how that thing is going to turn around.
Yeah. Wow.
So the gentleman helps you and you relocate to the US.
Yes.
How do you reconnect with your grandma?
So actually, I came with my grandma. So here I am, a teenager.
So your grandma was in Uganda too?
So no, my grandma was in the US in 94. And then after the genocide, she comes back to Rwanda and she's looking for me. Hey, I have a grandson. Where's my grandson? And she finds me. Actually, she passed through Uganda.
And where were you?
So in 95, I'm in Uganda.
Where?
It was my aunt. So my mom had left me at my aunt's house. So my grandma passes through Uganda, checks on me, proceeds to Rwanda, and then after maybe a few months, I also rejoin her in Rwanda. So I'm in Rwanda, and then so I'm at a point where I'm going to high school, and I do national exams. So I start high school. Then I think after 3 years, that's when we immigrated.
Kenan, as I'm listening to this story, I'm just thinking about the emotions. I'm thinking about as a young person losing your world,
child,
a child, you're the only child, the last time you spoke to your mom was when she dropped you off, and the rest is history.
Right.
And then what that does to someone, it doesn't matter how old you are, but what that does to someone.
That's trauma.
You know, that's trauma, that's, you know, I mean, everything. So, Valmy, how did these affect your life in terms of character, in terms of decision making, in terms of, you know, defining who you've become today? What do you think these played before we come back to the story and build on it?
And if you can break it like in stages, like when you are under 10, as you can, however you can.
I think the first thing, of course, I shared with you is you ask yourself, what is this about death? You know, but as you start to grow, as you start to interact again, to re-engage the world, because the first reaction is to withdraw, you know, and I think that's where really it became more introvert. You know, you withdraw with yourself, and so you're wrestling with these questions. So you're no longer wrestling with a question of material thing. You're asking yourself existential questions. You know, life. What is life? What does it mean to live? If in a moment everything can be snatched away, what does it mean to live? So I think mentally and emotionally, personally, so I'm going through these fast changes, and I become more reflective, and I'm developing this resilience. I'm developing this what I would call a tough skin. You know, that no matter how life throws me, I must land like a cat. I must land on my feet. So I think in those early stages, what ended up developing me is the ability, not the ability, but the I'm trying to find the right word, but you have to stand up no matter what. You just, in your mind, you just gotta stand, you gotta push through. You know, you gotta push through. And also I think the element of playing sports, because I played sports a lot, and so I learned that, you know, we may be on a losing side, but until the last whistle, until death calls you, you must try to score a goal. You know, so those analogies all came in play. You know, until the last whistle, until you're called to the grave, you know, you might, as long as you're on your feet, you must keep pushing ahead. And so I think those elements began to develop. But you see, what I came to realize, you also lose something. You may lose, let's say, you may lose ability to communicate well. You may lose, because you're wrestling with something else. Your mind is, you are no longer developing at the same pace like someone else who have both parents, whose necessities are covered. Right now, you are hustling. You are wrestling with, how do I survive today? Not even tomorrow, but today.
Wow.
You know, I'm laughing because hustling is a very common term between Valmy and I. And I thought I was hustling, but this guy is an expert in hustling. Well, that's a story for another day. But I'm processing all this. You know, I don't want to say this saying because it's the one that makes us laugh. Valmy has a saying that, you know, no matter it's in Kenya, Rwanda, but it's a saying. It's there, right? It's a real saying.
Sure.
So can you share?
I mean, you're free to share. This is your podcast. I'm just a guest.
He's absorbing. He's kind of laying the blame on you. The consequences.
And just to be honest with you, and I think this is a perfect moment. You know, I think it's a time that I was going through something in my life, right?
Very true,
and I called Valmy, like I was very low, like I was just like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna, you know, I just, you know, and I listen to Valmy's story and I know him. And I'm looking at myself, I'm like, what? I need to get up. But so I call him and I was like, I'm, you know, venting, I'm talking to him, and he tells me, listen, Ezra, there's a saying in Kenya, Rwanda that says that no matter how hard a man falls, no matter, his balls will never touch the ground. you know. In that moment, I was like, what? You know, I had to laugh about it. But it's true, though.
That's true.
It's true. So no matter how hard you fall, man,
That's it.
you know,
it.
every man will understand that
There
concept.
is a part of you, no matter how hard you fall, there's
Yeah.
a part of you that's not touched.
Yes.
And that is your essence.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what should keep
Right.
you.
That's why you're a social worker. You
You know,
make it look professional.
I had to clean up but that's true. Your essence of who you are is not touched.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and
and
that's,
and really to add on that, one of my favorite writers says, we should never let circumstances define us, but rather we should define these circumstances. We should use these circumstances as stepping stone to something else. It may not be material, but you come out a better person, character-wise.
Yeah.
So I want our hearers to understand that I'm not talking about if you come out and you come out scratched. No matter what,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
will be, but come out a better person.
Yeah.
So Valmy, going back to these concepts that you're building, I want to come now. You've moved to Indiana and how life settles in there, but in these early formative stages that we define, will you call these your defining moment of life? Like this, what would you what was the defining moment at these stages that we've shared of your life?
I think when I look at my life, I have 3 stages. When I reflect on my life, that I think this is the first.
This is the first one.
This
So
is
the
the first
first
stage.
one is losing your parents, losing everything is the defining moment of phase 1.
Anybody, when you lose your parents or even a parent, it becomes defining because no matter where, especially if you're in those formative years, that event is going to shape you, one way or another.
Awesome.
there's a question here before we take you'll answer this when you get back. Sit down, and this is your name is Valmy, right? And you're given that name at birth. So why do you think your parents named you that? And if you had to rename yourself, what would you be? But hold that thought. Let's take a break.
Welcome back
Welcome
after
back.
the break. All right. Listeners, welcome back again. If you're joining us, season 3, fresh out of the kitchen, Amazing Truth podcast. But one thing that we want to let you know that we have grown from Amazing Truth podcast to Amazing Truth Ministries.
Yes.
Right. We have a desire to do more than just podcasting. So there are more things cooking, more things coming. We've recently been engaged and involved in, doing some town hall talks on serious issues that are going on. We are talking about creating safe space for people to share their experiences where they are. And so we are creating a place for you. So stay tuned in season 3 as we keep on building. This is the one piece of Amazing Truth Ministries. One of it is the Amazing Truth podcast.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. Welcome back. Hey, let's stay together as always. We love you. We miss you. Give us your feedback.
The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
So yeah, we ended on that question, Valmy. So your name.
So I think from what I heard is that I was named after one of my parents' coworkers who they had developed a good friendship and relationship with, and I will not change my name, and for the reason I think my name is unique, and I think that makes me unique.
Yeah, that's
so-
just a segment for the listeners to
Yeah.
kind of get a picture of who you
Sure.
are. But yeah.
I think there's something that is said about that. That is a name gives you identity,
yeah.
right? When you walk out there and someone says Valmy, I won't turn because that's not who I am. It
right.
gives you the identity,
Right.
and there are people who, because of experiences they've gone through, maybe they don't like resonating with that name. They give themselves, maybe they refer themselves with a nickname and stuff. But the key point to take away...
Meta world peace.
Now it sounds crazy, man. But but I think just let me go a little bit off tangent here. You know, a name, it's a definition of who you are. It's character. It's, you know, when you say Isaac means laughter, someone who likes life. And you know, when you talk about Emmanuel, you know, Emmanuel technically means God with us. When you think Abram to Abraham, you know, father of nations, because that's who he was. This was not just a name. Oh, you're cute, let me give you a name.
Right.
But it's actually who the person is. So finding meaning in your name is something that it's a good place to start holding your ground when you're going through a crisis. First of all, finding. Kenan, what's your name? What does your name mean?
My name is Kenan. You know what it means?
What does it
means? An owner.
An owner.
Yes.
You own
It's in the Bible. First Chronicles 1:1.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see you're a good student. So at least, but it gives you, it gives that. Now, my name is Ezra. It's a Hebrew name which means Esdras, and Esdras means helper, someone who helps out. So the first place to start finding yourself is knowing your name. Why were you given your name? Because if you don't define yourself, somebody else will define you.
So as quick side note.
You're
So
smiling now.
what if
What
someone called Judas? No,
you see how your thought is thinking? Anyhow, let's get back to Valmy. Let's get back to Valmy.
But that's true though. But that's
so Valmy, you relocate, you come, you go to Rwanda, you reconnect with your grandma, you come to Indiana. How is life now in this new country? I'm sure there's culture shock, there's, you know, readjusting. How is that? How is that for you?
I mean, from, you know, I was recently reading that, you know, nowadays with the pandemic, with the COVID-19, everybody knows what Zoom is. If you don't know what Zoom is, you're probably living somewhere in the Amazon, you know. But recently I was reading that the founder of Zoom applied for the US visa 8 times and he was denied. You know, talk about resilience, talk about persistence, but he never gave up.
Yeah.
And on the 9th time, he got it. You know, so then he came. So he's here now. Look how he has changed the world. So I think there's something. You know, I don't want to get political, but I think there's something that is the uniqueness of America, the uniqueness of US. There is a reason why the US is a melting pot for many nations.
Okay.
And I think that is found in it, and it's embedded in the U.S. Constitution, and that U.S. Constitution, you know, has a reflection of Christian ideals. You know, this is Amazing Truth podcast, and you know, shared from a biblical perspective. And so I think those ideals that emanate from Scripture, from the Bible, is what has enabled the U.S. to be what it is as a nation. You know.
So how did it practically play out for you in now? How old were you when you came to Indiana? What stage of life were you in?
So I'm still a teenager. You're
still a teenager,
and I'm not saying that those ideals immediately impacted me. I'm talking about the desire for so many people in the world to immigrate to the U.S. What does the U.S. provide that is? For example, why are not many people in Russia or China today? You know, so that's why I say I don't want to get into politics, but the platform that the U.S. provides, that all of us, you know, you can pursue something like podcasts like this, and who knows,
freedom of speech and stuff like that.
So then,
you know, let me ask you, why did you leave India?
It's not our podcast.
Okay. But I'm reinforcing his point there.
No, for sure though, it's opportunity.
Yeah.
And you know, and my question to you was gonna be, but for me, I think I had heard about America. I have had people here, and the opportunity that it presented, I had to come so I can pursue those opportunities. By that time, they've changed over the years, but there's a reason for that opportunity. But Valmy, I want to ask you now, because you were in Uganda, right? Or in Africa. Did you know about that? Do you know about America and the opportunities it presented? Did that push you to want to come here?
So I had several relatives, and like I shared, my grandma also was here. So they had come and spied on the land, and they found there's opportunities like what you have described, and those endless opportunities, and say, okay, this might be the chance.
And at this point, Valmy, your aunt, your relative, your grandma, they are kind of making decisions
For you,
kind of for you.
Right.
They're influencing your decision making because now they're your guardians, right? You had never lived with your aunt, I want to presume, was Indiana. So you transition, you're living with a new aunt. How do you make the transition from the US to Canada? What causes that? Because you've moved from Uganda to Rwanda to US, now Canada. How does that happen?
So I'm in my teens. At this point, I think the powers that be, my aunt, my grandma, and my aunt's husband, they looked at the situation. Okay, my grandma is in her 60s, and then there's a need to apply for papers. There's a need for the proposal was if you go to Canada, you can fast track your papers.
Okay.
And then there's also the universal healthcare for grandma and all that. It will be, even though I think they were well-to-do then, extremely well-to-do at the time. But I think they looked at it from the point of view that this will fast-track the paperwork. This will, there'll be the healthcare access. A typical immigrant story, where can I make my move fast?
Right.
What's the fastest track? So, you meet some people who are well versed in the systems, and they can show you pointers, things you didn't know, and you'll be amazed how life turns out.
So then how does this now form you? You're here, you've seen the land, you've all these things. Now as a man at that time, how does that define you?
Yeah, what are the morals?
Yeah.
See, I'm 17 at that time.
Okay.
So I think I moved from this you gotta push through now to being responsible. At 17, I'm taking care of my grandmother. 17, 18, 19. I'm responsible for my grandma. I'm taking my grandma to different doctor appointments and all that. I'm translating. So I'm and at the same time I'm going to school. I'm in high school, So that's why we say at some point you may lose something here. You have different responsibilities. If my job title was not just go to school, come back home, do your homework. I had to make sure we got the groceries. I had to make sure rent is paid. So now I'm moving into an era where I have to be responsible. Not only for me, for my school, but also for my grandmother. Make sure she's well taken care of. Yeah. And
I think it's important to know that, because where you're coming from in Africa at 17, you're still in your parents' house. You don't have this. There's the sense of responsibility is not providing for your family. Your responsibility is where you're going to sit next, or who are you going to hang out with. So that changes your perspective of what a 17-year-old should do.
Okay. Yes.
So let me ask this: we're looking at 17-year-olds in this generation. We're seeing a lot of teenagers who are struggling to identify and find themselves. How can we help them shape their identity of knowing themselves? Do you think that these experiences forced you to? Do they need to have similar experiences? Do they need to go through such extreme circumstances? Because in this country, they say that somebody, his name, said that, you keep on calling these people, young people, you call them children, but if they go to the army, they're responsible adults. When you turn 18, you can be legally, charged because you're an adult. So how can we, what do you see as a challenge with the teenagers of this era? When you think the struggles and things, I don't know if I'm getting that question
that's
right.
Yep.
I mean, no question about it. There is teenagers today are provided so much. As a teenager, standard teenager, you have a phone, you have access to knowledge that few teenagers are tapping into. And there is our culture is entertainment driven culture. So there's a competition, defining who I am versus, hey, what if I just get infinitely entertained.
Yeah.
In fact, I was looking the other day. Do you know how much Netflix is worth today?
No.
In the billions and billions, right? I don't have the exact number with me, but look at the one. I think I forgot the name of it, but it's an educational platform that you can access knowledge classes on it. You know how much it's worth? Like a few $1 million. So that tells you our priorities. Our priorities as a culture here is entertainment driven. Entertain me until I go to sleep. And so I see it with a lot of young people is after exhausting the social media platforms, and then next is you are on a Netflix. That's where the term Netflix and chill comes. So I think the danger that young people are facing is entertainment. So you have to make a choice.
Is it entertainment or decision making? Because entertainment is a part of life, right? So is it that they're not able to differentiate and say, I have had enough of this today, so this is how much I can take in per day? The ability of making those decisions, to know that, because the other extreme is you take that away, it's I don't think phones are bad. I think how you use the phones is what is bad.
So it's the decision making, but at the same time you have to realize, if you don't have anything that is occupying you, if you are idle, the greatest danger, actually, even beyond entertainment, is idleness.
Yes.
You have so much time that you don't know what to use it for. So when you have so much time, even as a grown-up man, I mean, you have 40-year-olds who are still living with their parents, 45. They're sitting in front of video games all day, 12 hours. So if the danger we face is idleness. If you are so idle that you don't know what to use your time for, then you're going to resort to entertainment. Hey, let me use this time to entertain me. So yes, there's a question of decision, but I think there has to be a person who's listening to us, whether you're 17 like I was, or you are 40. You have to make a decision. How do I use my time now?
But then a challenge I'll ask is then, do they need to have someone that guides them, or because you made your decision, maybe your grandma influenced you to make that decision or not, but do they need to have someone of a figure that helps them make the right
guide
decisions?
them through that?
All of us, whether you're 10 or 60, it's good to have mentors. In fact, there is a book I think by Ferris, A Tribe of Mentors. You need to have mentors all along your life, and those are crucial. But a mentor will not make a decision for you. They can advise, they can guide, but it's going to be up to me. It's going to be up to you to step up and say, hey, instead of sitting in front of this TV all day, let me go get a job. So find something that will make you responsible. And actually, there is joy, there is meaning in work. When we find work, something to do. At the time when I was 17, my job, was I had school, but also taking care of my grandmother. What I realized it taught me patience, because I'm a 17-year-old. I have all this, my friends are going partying. I want to go partying too. My friends are going to do X, Y, and Z. I want to go too, but at the same time, I have to take care of my grandma. So I think that became an educational moment for me, that it had to teach me patience, to be patient at that time.
So what I'm hearing is that though you lost your parents, though you lost what considerably everything you had, it seems to have played a major role in shaping how you make your decision.
Right.
It like those circumstances became like a moral guiding, pillars of your life.
Right.
Versus here today, you have your parents. Sometimes they themselves are lost, maybe because they're immigrants, they're trying to settle in a foreign country, or different values. But not everyone who's going through a crisis, when life gives you lemon, squeeze them and make lemonade out of it.
Right.
Like that helped you to, figure out how to make decisions, to plan yourself, to be responsible at the stage and the age of 17, versus someone else will take that moment and be depressed and be, mentally, whatever it is. And I'm not saying that people are different, but the moral of what I'm hearing is that these experiences you underwent helped shape how you, as your teenage life, to be more responsible. In that. Now, I want to use an analogy here. Valmy, I know you are very familiar with
If I can make something quick, I want to make this comment. This gentleman, he advises so many people. He's on Twitter, Shane Parrish. He made this comment, and he said, if a decision is a lifetime decision, take as much time as possible to make that decision. But if a decision is just, has no consequence, it's almost immaterial, you can make it in a snap. But if a decision, let's say for example, you're choosing a career, you are a teenager, you are on the cusp of going to college, take enough time to make that decision. If you're on the cusp of on a threshold of getting married, take as much time, because that decision will influence you long. And the reason I say that, I've had friends who say I'm slow at making decisions.
They tell you you're slow at making decisions.
No, they are.
They're telling me I'm slow at making decisions.
Okay.
And I came to realize my slowness is not slow, because I realized from early on that every decision have consequences. Like I talked about going to the military. I talked about, you here, I'm a teenager, I've lost everything. Where do I go? Who do I associate with? And then you start learning how to read people. Is this person genuine or not? Or do I entertain them but know how to treat them? So you start evaluating all those. So I come to realize that no matter what your decision-making process, understand this, that there are decisions that have lifetime consequence for the rest of your life. Like having a child is the rest of your life. So think hard.
It's not part-time.
It's not part-time. Think hard about such a decisions.
But now, Valmy, if I can go with what you're saying, that is, let's say making having a child, that then goes to your sexual life, right? Because that's where a child is made. So the decision begins, should I even engage in this act with this person? Do I see myself with them? Is it right? Can I take care of the consequence whenever it comes at the end of it? What kind of father or mother will I be? Like that decision is not just, I'm going to have a good time right now, but processing it all and taking time to do that.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. If you understand that this act I'm about to engage in has a potential to impact me for the rest of my life. Then you're not going to rush for enjoy 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You're going to step back and say, whoa, I don't want to enjoy 10 minutes and suffer for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Man.
So
then we're building onto this.
We're building onto this.
So
we're building
you're
on
17, you're school, you're working, you're taking care of your grandma.
Sure.
What's the next step? What comes?
So you get to Canada.
So
how does that?
So I'm in Canada, and this is where perhaps the name of your podcast comes in play. Amazing truths. And so all along, I have wrestled with the question: death, existence. Why? What's the purpose? I'm just getting up and routine. That's why it's good to have routines, because even when you lose purpose in life, when you lose like a sense of existence, when you have routines, they keep moving you. It's like going to the gym or exercising. Nowadays I run. I run marathons and that kind of stuff. But there are times there are times I wake up and
you don't want a rabbit in Nonas here. we run, but we run in our minds. All right, so routine.
So routine. So there are times you get up, literally you are struggling. Do I go for a run or not? And you're just probably going for a 2-mile run. Do I go or not? Just 2 miles. Just 2 miles. Yeah. Begin simple. And that's the thing. You don't have to begin with a half a marathon. You just begin with a mile or 2 miles. And so so you wrestle with that. But because you build the routine, you say, even if I don't feel like it, even if I don't want it, but let me just begin with at least maybe a quarter mile. And by the time you hit a quarter mile, your adrenaline is kicking in. You're just starting. So it's good to have routines, because when those moments come that you don't feel like doing it.
So how does routine play in your role in Canada now?
So I'm about my responsibility, taking care of my grandma, going to school, and all that. And then one of a couple of friends introduced me to the Bible. I'm about 18 now.
So before you jump that, how's your life in terms of social life, in terms of yourself at the stage 17? Friends are going partying. Are you engaging in that? Are you how are you socializing?
I have no friends.
You have no friends.
I have no what I call genuine friends because I'm 17. I go to school, I come home, make sure we have food, we're eating. I have to do my homework and go to sleep. Next day, I have to get up, routine, you know. So it's hard to develop friendship. And also remember, it's a new culture, a new language, so many things new, you know. And I have to catch a bus. And don't play. You think here we're in Minnesota for our audience. You know, you think Minnesota winter is cold. Try Canadian winter, you know, and you have to get up and take a bus. You know, this is one of the reasons in college I hated genetics because my labs were at 6 p.m. in the winter in January, February, March.
6 a.m.
6 p.m. Sorry, 6 p.m. And after our lab didn't end until 10 p.m.
Oh,
and I have to go and catch a bus. Oh, I dreaded that. So I ended up actually hating the subject, not because I hated the subject, but just the logistics of me going to take the class.
But even
that's a part of
even that, I'll applaud you still keeping at it and going. I know a lot of people. I mean, I don't know if myself. I can't even speak for Kenan on this. I don't know if we'll go, right?
that's true.
I'm probably not making it. But I think you see all these things, resilience that you've built in your life, it's still showing up even in small things of your life. So so you're in Canada. You have no friends.
So
routine.
So I have no friends, and I came to realize now that as I look back, that I started gravitating to older people because I was seeking counsel. So I've always sought out guidance. So from that age, when I lost everything, I realized I can use the help of older people. Older people doesn't mean, let's say, like 60s. I mean, anybody older than me who may have a little bit more life experience. So anybody who knows me, I'll actively seek out guidance or information or anything. So unashamedly, I will ask, hey, how do you do this? What is this? What is, you know? And so I started gravitating, and some of these people coalesced around me and started sharing their perspective on life. And that I would call it probably the second most defining moment in my life.
And I want to push on this because I know there's people who have really played key role. Like you know, you lost your grandma at some point, you got adopted. That's your story. We'll come to that. But that just being adopted again and you know, growing through that. But you're in Canada. You're taking care of your grandma. You're going through life decisions right now. You're in college. Sounds like you eventually get to college.
You're 18 or
you're
19.
18 or 19 around that. In college, did you party? Did you get friends there? Where is your grandma? Are you living on campus or you're just off campus?
So I finished high school, and I had an agreement with my aunts back in Indiana that I'll finish high school and then I'll apply to Wayne State, which is in close to Detroit. I had some misunderstanding, I guess a major misunderstanding with my aunt. So for me to come back, I needed somebody to just sponsor me, sponsor you. But in Canada and the US had this understanding that you can still pay like a Canadian, and you still get the Canadian student loans. But then we have this misunderstanding, and then I don't get the letter. At this point, so that becomes a crashing moment for me, because I had always wanted to go through med school like my dad, emulate my dad's footsteps. And this was going to get me in a pre-med program at Wayne State. So that doesn't happen.
Okay, let's
pause here. Let's finish here.
So then you have this, let's just build the meat on it. So you're a young boy in Rwanda, you witness genocide, you lose your parents, you go to Uganda, your grandma comes and picks you up, brings you to Canada, you go through the motions and your age, everything is looking up, you're responsible, you're forming your life decisions, and then you have this desire now to go to med school, emulate your dad. We're going to build on that. Emulate your dad, and then there's a crashing moment.
Yes.
I think it's good we end.
I think let's just say that this is part one, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, because we're building on this story. Part two, we're going to be talking more to you. How has all these experience shaped Valmy's principles in life, how he makes decisions, and advice to anyone who's struggling, who's going through a crisis in their life, to know that it is not the end. Remember, as we said in this podcast, no matter how hard you fall, your
essence is not lost.
This is not lost. All right. Thank you. That is Amazing Truth Podcast.
Before you conclude, I think we want to just do a disclaimer that we are in no means glorifying Valmy,
Yes.
or what he's done. We're just painting a picture of what life is and how you can get back and get on and push on.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we don't want pride to get in. We pray that God gives us the humility
Yes.
to inspire someone.
Yes.
And understand that you are lovable, important, and valuable. The reason why you're alive today is because you have a purpose in life.
Yeah.
Purpose to find your purpose in life so that you can live it to the fullest. That is Amazing Truth Podcast, Season 3, Episode 1. This is how we close it. Tune in next week as we go to part 2 of Valmy's story through thick and thin, I guess.
Yeah,
Thank you. That is it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Amazing Truth Podcast. We hope you were blessed as you listened. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. God bless you, and see you on the next one.